Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are back with my teen life coach. That's myteenlifecoach.com. Liezel joining us here once again. Pleasure to have you back. How are you?
Very good. It's been a good weekend. I hope you had a good Memorial Day.
I did. And yourself?
Yes. I always wonder about why Tuesdays are so hectic after Memorial Day Monday.
I know, but it is, right? You get that extra day. You feel inclined to just enjoy it, which we rightfully deserve. New listeners out there today, would you mind just introducing yourself and explaining who you are and exactly what you do?
Yeah. So I am a professional teen life coach, a resilience coach, and I'm also the founder of myteenlifecoach.com. What I sometimes forget to tell people is that I'm also a faculty member with the Youth Coaching Institute. So that's kind of something that I absolutely love to do. And what we do is we work with teenagers, their parents, and their families to build resilience in teenagers, especially around the 21st century parenting challenges.
Wow. Well, it's exciting to have you here. And by the way, you do a lot of your work virtually as well, but where are you located specifically?
Yeah, we are located in Atlanta, but yeah, we work worldwide. We have European and Canadian clients as well.
Beautiful. All right. So as a resilience, a life coach, I know you work with adolescents. One of the things I brought up last week, if we could just start with it, is about how, and as a parent too, you're dealing with social media. They're always on their devices, and social media has its good and it's bad, but I hear a lot of negative about the body image and how it's portraying people to have this perfect life, and it's just a little unsettling. I mean, you may know better, right? Because you have teenagers.
Yeah. You know what I thought we could do today, Jill, is divide our 30 minutes into 3 parts that can talk about this particular social media thing.
Sure.
And that will provide like a timeline and some context around it. And actually, it was refreshing to go through that again, just because, yeah, like you said, as a mom, I'd forgotten how the context of the timeline and how smartphones were introduced and when kids were born and stuff like that, how all of that kind of became intertwined and what the unintended consequences have been. Especially for the first generation parents of the first generation social media kids, right? So yeah. So what I'll do is I'll maybe just talk about a timeline to give us a little bit of perspective, and I'll be completely transparent and vulnerable here. So, like when you think about the timeline of our what do I want to call them? Like the population of decades. Like, so I'm a Gen X, right? So I'm 50 years old, and the Gen X population is approximately from 1965 to 1980. So we're around between 42 years old and 57 years old, right?
Yep.
Then the millennials came along, and that's approximately from 1981 to 1996. So those peoples are around between 26 and 41 years old. And then our Gen Zs came along, and they were approximately, there's differing theories, but they were approximately born between 1997 and 2012. So those kiddos are now between 10 and 25 years old. And that just like really landed on me as I was just reviewing that this morning, because my kids are 16, 19, and 21. So they're towards the older side of Gen Z now. And just kind of thinking back to, oh my gosh, when they wanted phones. And
I think I hear your phone. Is that your phone?
Oh, with my...
You can pick it up.
Yeah. Oh, that is my teenager. Yes.
Oh, look at that. Perfect timing.
Yeah. And so they were born. So, okay. So then there's Gen Zs, right? And now your kiddos are part of the Alpha generation. And they are born between from 2010 onwards, right? So if you think about Austin and Jackson, that's kind of their where they are. So we've got like 2 generations that are in the 20th century, what I would call parenting, phases, and then now we've got parenting in the 21st century. And here's where the interesting thing happens: the first portable mobile phone was introduced in 1984. So think about that.
Wow.
1984. So that means that that was smack bang in the millennial phase, right? And then in 1992, the smartphone came out. Then in 1994 is when we started to have social apps. And then in 1997 is when mobile gaming, Candy Crush, came on the scene. So if you think 1997, so that means that's right about when Gen Z generation started, right? And then around 2001 onwards is when cell phones started to have access to the internet. And then in 2007 is when Apple came into our lives. So now you think all through that period is when millennials became parents. And millennials were the consumers of that, right? It's like, oh my gosh, is this whole new thing in our lives? And there was this delayed impact of technology as the consumers of that technology. So now you can imagine being a young parent, you've got kiddos, you're a millennial, and you've got like your first smartphone, you've got Candy Crush. It's like this whole new, I don't want to call it addiction. It was more like fascination that eventually turned into maybe addiction, right? And so these kids were watching their parents. So typically, monkey see, monkey do. Kids are growing up watching their parents completely involved in this new technology and form of communicating and form of integrating themselves into this thing that's in the palm of their hands. So I want to give credit to Tim Elmore because I'm an absolute fan of his books, and he has lays this out so beautifully in terms of how when they interviewed kids and they did research and stuff, the most common thing a 10-year-old might say is, I wish my mom would just look at me when I'm talking to her. So that was a kid who is watching their parents with a new toy. And they're saying, I want to, like, there's something cool about that toy because my parents keep being with those toys. And so now I want that toy. And so then that pressure started, right? So I remember when my kids were in elementary school, that was when the pressure started for us. And I know nowadays it's earlier and earlier and earlier. We even have pre-Ks who have
my son in pre-K kindergarten, now he's in first, keeps asking for a phone still. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So, and we'll talk about that in a little while. So now that's kind of your context, your timeline. So you've got these kids who grow up watching their parent behaviors. And then now we talk about the second part, which is like the teen experience through this. What did they observe? What did they watch? How did they become immersed? And then what were we as parents not prepared for, right? Those unintended consequences. So there's, like you said earlier on, there's a positive and there's a negative. So let's do the positive first, right? So the good news is, like, technology has helped with healthcare, with education, with entrepreneurial stuff, with, you've got kids who are, now being called no-collar workers. They're entrepreneurial. They're making money.
They're making videos. I can't yet. They're richer than us. There's the YouTube videos my son was watching the other day. These teenagers, they have Lamborghinis, they have mansions. They were giving away $1 million in a day.
Yep. Yeah, they've learned how to monetize what we used to consume in technology. They're actually controlling and producing out of that right now, right? So incredible innovation, and their IQs are sky high. Their motor skills and reactivity skills are really, really good. So and also they have learned how to bypass kind of the corporate ladder. So you wonder why they're not, their kids are delaying going into the workforce. It's like, no, we want to control our own destiny. Yeah. So there's this whole thing that happened that, oh, by the way, you and I were like, oh my God, we didn't know this was going to happen.
We think of that. Now, Ryan's World. Remember Ryan's World? His parents started that whole franchise for him. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's like the good stuff. The good stuff is kids are empowered to find their information. Kids are able to partner in healthy relationships, partner with their parents about, how they get educated. Now you've got online school, you've got homeschooling has become so much easier, and being able to cater towards those kinds of things, right? So it's a lot to process, just that in and of itself. It's a lot. So I celebrate that. And then at the same time, I wish I could go back 10 years and know what I know today and have done my parenting differently. And so this is where we get caught up. So, again, in full transparency, because my kids are on the older side of Gen Z, they got the brunt of that. Everything that I'm reading about the consequences of the negative consequences of being on social media and in the tech world definitely landed in my lap. And not because I was stupid or ignorant or, I didn't do my homework. We were all, as a society, kind of learning this as we were going along in a way. And I mean, here I am with 3 degrees and, this, that, and the next thing. Even the best of us were just trying to manage
Navigate.
this weird kind of pressure. So here is what I've observed and coached. So almost 1,000 hours of all of my coaching time in this particular work, and then just being a human being and being a mama, is they are extremely independent and they want to learn alone. Unintended consequence, that sense of community and learning together and wanting to interact and be in a learning environment together goes away, right? Starts to go away. So now, of course, we'll talk about like what the fallout of that is. The other thing is easy information, but too much information. And that is, from a brain aspect, not giving their brains time to switch off. So now we understand why they're not sleeping, why they are unable to find time to really process. And because of that is because their brain is being tricked into needing to be awake all the time. And so there's this research that shows that now they're seeing in the brains of kids the thinning of the cortex lining, which is how our brains process thought and action, which means that now our brains are not processing thought and action as well as it should. So now you've got anxiety coming up because we haven't had processing time. We're already sleep deprived because we've got the phone like right next to us, even with like meditation music on, but it's still a phone, right? It's still got the blue light and stuff. Add to that TV, add to that learning on smart tablets at school. They are doing an equivalent of 40 hours of a normal person's work week purely on screen. So no brain breaks whatsoever. Unintended consequence, because guess what? We, as parents, fell into that trap too, right? So now the brain is just not getting a chance. It's just not getting a chance. And as a result of that, they are unable to filter the quality of information. They're just like receiving, and there's no like discernment on what should I or should I not pay attention to. So the fallout.
Do you think it's important? Do you think your son's calling, or is that your son?
No, this is just work.
I feel bad only because I keep hearing it. So on my account, please take it. It's an emergency.
Totally
I was on the radio last year and I get a call. I from the school kept calling me and I was ignoring it. And then I'm like your son just broke his arm. I'm like, gotta go. So things happen.
No,
okay,
we're fine. She actually just said perfect. Good luck. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so no, she's totally fine. In fact, she was reminding me of remembering to pick up her meds tomorrow. So yet another consequence of being the parent of a Gen Zer. They're all on meds, right? So please don't worry, they're good. We're good. And
Okay.
I have a great support system. Okay. So now we go to like part B of that second part, and that is we have unintendedly raised kids who have fear of the future. Why? Because they've seen the school shootings, they've seen the news. We've got CNN all the time, on all the time. We're getting these notifications and stuff. So they are, without realizing, absorbing all of this unintended stress. So now we have, and especially in the older Gen Zers, skepticism and cynicism. How many teens have I heard say, I don't plan to get married. I don't want to have kids. The world's going to end anyway. So why? The planet's dying. So
Yeah.
why? So lots of negative thoughts and thinking around that. Also, you and I may not have learned about sex and drugs and stuff. At least I know I didn't until much, much later. We've got tweenies who are completely versed about sex and drugs and adult vices and are having those conversations. So we have not, and I put me in that category, we have not taught them how to be discerning because we didn't know how to be discerning. So now we've got trust issues because now there's bullying on cyber. And here's the other thing that happens. Let's say they're at school and they're getting picked on. They come home, they don't get a break from getting picked on because now it's also happening on social media and on their phones and through the group chats, etc. I can't tell you how many kids come home and I am literally with them on their phones, helping them write messages back to their group chats about leave me alone. Like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, you should not have taken that picture and sent it to me. Like those kinds of things. So they're independent, but they're still dependent on us, right? They are alone, yet they do not get to be alone.
Yeah, true.
There is no drama in their lives, yet everything is filled with drama. They have a high IQ, but they have a low EQ.
Interesting.
Right? So all this, they're childish, but not childlike. There's all this very opposite mixed messages going on. And
Wow.
So it's not a surprise, Joel. Like, it's not a surprise that, they don't want to get married. They don't want to go into the workforce right away. They don't want to get their driver's licenses. They've got Uber. I have an Uber app. Why get a driver's license, right? So I always have a big sigh when I talk about that part because it hurts. It hurts. There's parents who feel like they thought they did a good job, wanted to do a good job, but these are the fallouts of the unintended consequences. And there's guilt and shame and defensiveness and, all that stuff. Like, the parents are going through it too. So, I mean, how do you feel when you hear that information?
Well, let me put it this way. I can relate in a sense. I have a 5 and 7-year-old, but I have a boyfriend whose son is 23, went to school just for one semester and is just sleeping every day till 2. And this very amazing thing, he does photography a little bit, does some weddings here and there, but doesn't have a full-time job. His parents are still paying all his bills, bought him a car, lives with mom. And his father said to him, he's like, you have to get a job. You have to learn time management and your whole day. He's like, but Dad, he's like, I feel I'm doing a great job at time management because I'm getting up, I'm managing my time. If I had to work, then I'd have to listen to someone. They're going to tell me what to do with my time. But he was serious when he said it, as if he really doesn't process that. That's not really time management, managing your day, sleeping till 2, and then realizing, well, if I have a boss, he's going to tell me how to manage my time. It's bizarre that I heard that. And I said, what? And I said, never, I'll never let my kids do that. They'll be out of the house by 18. He's like, you wait and see. He's like, when you're in it, it's different. He's like, you love your child, but they're just not driving. There's no drive. I said, well, who also bought him a car? He's like, I did. Who's paying for his insurance? I do. Who's letting him live at home? His mom. So I believe in tough love to a point, but what do you do in a situation like that? Do you just learn to accept that as the norm? But how are they ever going to grow up? And
Exactly.
I just can't
Exactly.
believe he thinks that's time management because I'm up. I'm getting up at 2, managing my own
Yeah.
time. I don't want a boss to tell me what to. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And as bizarre as that sounds, that is real. That is real and it is the norm. And that is what calls for 21st century parenting, not 20th century parenting, right? It's not like this is the way we used to do it. Well, life wasn't that way, the way we
mm-hmm.
used to do it, right? I mean, gosh, I didn't get a cell phone until I started working as an adult in my 30s after I immigrated to America. So you just think about that from a just perspective, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, here's the proactive side of it, I guess. I I did a little bit of stuff because I haven't really looked at the alphas yet. And that is a group of kids that I have to start looking at because they're coming on you know,
Quick. They're
the
they're
adolescent
getting there.
stuff,
Mine are
right?
5 and 7, so
Yeah,
they're
and
2015 and 17.
right, and they're
And
saying that adolescence starts now at like at 10 and lasts more like till 23. So you know, the adolescence phase is broadening. So I decided to like look at that from a you know, how do we move forward? So there's the here and the now, there's the Gen Zers now, and then there's the alphas that are coming up. And I think if we are mindful as parents, we can coach to the Gen Zers still, which is why I have a job, because that's what we're helping get them through. But I think there is space and room for proactive parenting in the 21st century around the alphas.
okay.
So, do you want me to share some of those?
Please, I'm interested. I'm fall right in this category, and I'm so many people do too.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick. With Gen Zers, what we want to do is partner with them. We want to acknowledge them as equals because we've basically grown up in the tech world with them, even though we are the adults. So it's like incentive problem solving. It's helping them to find their roots, their identity again, their self-efficacy, boundaries. They're getting 10,000 messages a day. How do you have boundaries around those things, right? With your boyfriend's son, it's, you know, who am I? What am I? Why am I here? And then connecting that to, is there community that we can help link with that, and respecting them around those things. Critical thinking, you know, thinking about the thinking part, right? Why are you thinking about it that way? Can we look at it this way? And so it's that stick to itness. It's the so easy to hop off onto something if this isn't working for me. That's not working for me. So I'm going to go over here. No, let's stick to it. Let's just see what comes out. Doesn't matter. We learn from it, right? So that's the job of the coaches. That's why I want to really put a message out there. We need more teen resilience coaches. I want people to call the youth coaching institutes and get them certified. Anybody who wants to work with teenagers, we need more and more and more coaches. Now, as far as the alphas go, this is where you, Mama Jill, you have an opportunity here for family agreements about media. That means that the family is accountable to each other. When we decide not to have screen time, we're all not going to have screen time.
You're right. You're
right?
right.
So I loved watching, I think I saw on Facebook on your story, you were out celebrating with the boys on Memorial Day. Like you were with them, you were together, you were.
I was sick as a dog, but I still had to bring them to the pool. I remember I was sick last week. I am still stuffy. I have an ENT appointment finally on Friday.
Oh,
I
wow.
have to keep going and doing. And I tell them no iPads. But the problem is, since I live alone and my younger son, because technically I had my first son all by myself, right? So, but
Right.
he thinks kind of he's his father. Well, he knows the story, but I tell him. So there is a father figure that comes around every now and then for both of them. And he goes by the name of Peter. They don't call him dad. They call me Jill too. But when he comes once a week, every other week, which is not long, he's always at my house, doesn't go to their house because the kids have sports activities. I get it. And we have a good relationship. He'll stay over if he has to, but he always lets them go on the iPad. He always lets them have soda. He thinks it's cool to be that. And I can't get it through his head. He's 54, 53. That is not it. Everything I do and establish in my home, you come and ruin within a week or 2 weeks. And it starts them from ground zero. And I wish I didn't have to have his help or at my house, but I do. And it frustrates me because I'm so good at limiting screen time. I'm good at it. And he's like this the whole day in front of them. He sits there on the couch. And so he's into that.
Yep. I can hear the frustration in your voice.
Oh gosh, I'm so frustrated. Sorry. And
no, that's totally, and it's legitimate because it has to be a boundary it's kind of like no candy before dinner time. We've known that for years and years and years. Or you are absolutely going to bed at 8 p.m. Yep. It needs to become an integral part of life and how it is. And then in addition to that, it's about teaching them from young what is safe, what is age appropriate, what is not. And with that comes, we do not have a choice as parents to opt out of becoming cyber educated. Yes. We have to get cyber educated because nothing is truly private. We know that, and the content can be misunderstood. So we have to get off of our butts and get educated on that stuff and not take this laissez-faire approach. True. Because that has to become an integral part of it. So that there's a lot of information around the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'll continue to post all of that stuff and all of that. But for me, it's about the parent has to set the example, not be the friend, be the parent. You're not in a popularity contest, and that's old school. But it needs to also find its language in the newer parenting strategy.
New school. Old school needs to be new school. Exactly. Perfect. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time. Great conversation today, really. Wow. Thank you.
And rich, right? There's lots of rich stuff people can take with them.
Absolutely. So would you mind telling our listeners how we can reach out to you and the work you do? You not only work with the adolescents, you're working with the parents. My goodness.
We're a village. So the website, if anybody wants to get a hold of us, is www.myteenlifecoach.com. You can call me anytime, 770-235-8202. And there's a form on the website too. So if if we're busy with clients and stuff like that, just fill out the form and we can get you ASAP.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time for being here, for joining us, and looking forward to the next time we speak. Thank you again for those tips. I'm going to talk to the dad today. Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk next week. We'll do a follow-up. Have a great day, Liezel, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye, Jill.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.